It is a grievous task which God has given to the sons of men to be afflicted with. And I have seen all the works which have been done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and striving after the wind.
Well, a very cheery good morning to you all this morning after that Bible reading. I hope it didn't get you down too much on Mother's Day. But this morning for Mother's Day, we are going to look at the book of Ecclesiastes. We're going to look at it all in one hit. I've been reading the book of Ecclesiastes for a few months now, and alongside it, a book by Bobby Jameson called Everything is Never Enough. The 2025 Christian Book of the Year is a great book. There's no other book in the Bible quite like Ecclesiastes. Downright depressing at times, but also surprisingly refreshing, because it doesn't give us the airbrushed, neat answers to life that we get on social media and other places. It is raw and it's honest, and it puts words to what life often feels like. It makes you sit longer with dilemmas about meaning and about purpose and about happiness. And so I want to share this message with you that I've called the message of Ecclesiastes for mums and everyone else. Ecclesiastes is in the wisdom section of the Bible. The author is called the son of David, most likely Solomon. And the main character in the book is not the author himself, but someone he describes as the teacher. And the meaning of this title, the teacher, is one who gathers people around to listen. And so we're meant to do that. We're meant to gather around the teacher and listen to what he has to say. Because this teacher went on a quest for true happiness, for meaning and purpose. And so he threw himself into work, and he left no pleasure of this world untried. Wealth and power and relationships and sex and food and drink, been there, done that. But what he found was that everything is never enough. So gather around and listen to what he has to say. He's not one of those teachers that you just felt never really understood you. As you listen to him, it's more like, how did this guy know how I feel? How did he know I'd feel so empty on the day after my birthday? How did he know I'd work all my life and then at the end feel like none of it even mattered? How did he know that life would feel so mundane? Well, Bobby Jameson gives a helpful way to see the structure of the book of Ecclesiastes so that you can get its message. He says it's like a 3-story building with a ground floor, a middle floor, and a top floor. And on the ground floor is where most of the book lives. He observes the way of work and relationships and money and pleasure and the passing of time and injustice and even death. But then 7 times in the book, the teacher takes us up to the second floor to see all of those things again, but from a different view. And we're going to see what those things are, that view is. And then just a few occasions in the book, the teacher takes us up to the top floor to see what must be seen for everything else under the sun to make sense. But the book begins on the ground floor where life is frustrating and hard. The words of the preacher, it says in chapter 1, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. Vanity of vanity, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. The Hebrew word repeated here is hevel. It means something like vapor or mist or smoke. That's what life is. It's used 38 times in the book. You try to grab at a mist, but there's nothing there. Just when you think you have something that brings you meaning or happiness, something happens and it's gone from your grasp. So things are absurd and confusing. And so he says, hevel, hevel. Everything is utterly hevel. He sees that life is so repetitive. Generations come and go, and The sun rises and the sun sets, and winds blow around and streams flow endlessly. Wake up, do the school run, clean the house, trip to the playground, put the dinner in, get them to bed, crawl into bed yourself. But it's going to be there again tomorrow. Verse 9, there's nothing new under the sun. It's all been done before. Even our achievements have already been achieved by other people. And so it's like he says, go ahead, spend your life achieving and making a name for yourself. There'll always be someone greater. And verse 11, in 100 years' time, no one's going to remember you anyway. How's everyone going so far? I said to myself I'd just check in every now and then as we go through it. Well, the teacher decides to set out to find life's meaning in pleasure. In chapter 2, he says, I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. I built houses, planted vineyards, made gardens and parks, gathered wealth, surrounded myself with every pleasure. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure. This is a man 3,000 years ago who lived this. So he threw himself. Then verse 11, it says, then I considered all that my hands had done, and all was vanity, a striving after the wind. And so he threw himself into his work. He worked hard, he worked long, he made his life about work. But even there, the teacher found that work is frustrating. He said, I hated all my toil, which I toil under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to the man who will come after me. Your time comes to an end in a certain job or even in retirement, and then it's all left to someone else, and who knows whether they'll be a wise or a fool. There's just no guarantees. You work tirelessly in the home, the invisible labor, with little recognition and not much thanks. You pour yourself into children and family and work, but ultimately you can't control the outcomes and whether things will turn out the way that you hope. Well, the teacher also saw that the world is unjust. Chapter 4, verse 1, again I saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. In chapter 8, verse 14, there are righteous people who seem to reap what wicked people ought to get, but it's the wicked people who prosper. And finally, the teacher observed that whether you're wise or you're a fool, it doesn't really matter in the end, because the same event happens to everyone. Death comes to all, and sometimes even an untimely death. And so what's the point even in seeking wisdom if it doesn't guarantee you a longer life? You see, there's nothing airbrushed here. Life is repetitive. All the pleasures of this world are never enough. Work is frustrating. And your inputs don't always produce the outcomes you were hoping for. An athlete eats right and trains perfectly for years, but gets injured the week before the race. Or you study hard for the exam, but when you sit the exam, it focuses on the one area that you missed. You make some smart business decisions, but then the economy turns around and you're struggling. You give your children the best opportunities that you can, but they don't make the most of them. Life is frustrating and hard. But as true as that is, it's not the whole truth. Because as I said, 7 times in the book, the teacher takes us up to the second floor of the building to show us that though life is frustrating and hard, life is a gift from God to enjoy. Now, how do you say that without it being like a cheesy cliche? Because it does sound a little bit like a picture like this, doesn't it? With a caption, life is a gift, And we sort of roll our eyes when we see someone say something like that. But the 7-time refrain of the teacher is just that. Life is a gift to be enjoyed. It's God's gift to be enjoyed, and that's no small thing. In chapter 2, verse 24, it says, there is therefore nothing better for a person then he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. Apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? In chapter 5:19, everyone also to whom God has given wealth and possessions and power to enjoy them and to accept his lot and rejoice in his toil. This is the gift of God. And so on the second floor, he looks back at all the same things that he saw on the ground floor, the routine of life, work, money, sex, food, and drink, but with one important difference. They are not ultimate things. They are gifts given from God to enjoy. Now, this hit me in a very tangible way. Just last week, it was Paddy, my youngest son's very first basketball game on a Saturday morning. And it's just a bunch of 7-year-old boys playing their first game, the cutest kind of chaos you can imagine. And there were these moments where, after being sort of in the scramble with all the scrum of boys chasing the ball, they had this moment where they get out in open space with the ball by themselves. And they just had this ear-to-ear smile on their face. They were loving it. And it's enough to make you choke up with tears of happiness. Sheer joy on the faces of 7-year-old boys. And this is a simple moment for us to enjoy. And it's the gift of God that we can so easily miss. And what the teacher is saying is that part of what it means to live a meaningful and happy life is to accept that things in this life are hevel. They are fleeting. And things that happen are absurd and confusing. And life doesn't always go as we think it should. But wisdom is to accept this reality and to receive the good gifts that God has given us to enjoy. A coffee with friend. A quiet moment in the car when it's raining on the windscreen. Laughter around a table of good food and drink. Children's voices. Listening to a favorite song. Creating a new process at work. A walk at the beach. Is to recognize that in the present moment you're in, there is something there to receive. And you can't store it up for later. In a way, we seem to be losing the art of enjoying the present. You might go to a concert today and see a band or a performance, and people are watching it like this. I don't know why. I guess to watch it back later. It's to try and prolong the joy or store it up for later. But enjoyment doesn't work like that. The joy is to be received in the moment. And if you don't, it's gone. And so the teacher writes, I commend joy. For a man has nothing better under the sun but to eat and drink and be joyful. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love, all the days of your vain or short life that he has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life and in your toil and which you toil under the sun. Bobby Jameson writes, what brings you joy? A late 3-hour conversation with a new friend on a weeknight, cooking and eating Saturday dinner with your family, say homemade pasta with pesto made from homegrown basil and homemade custard-based chocolate ice cream for dessert. Oh yeah. Playing hide and seek with your 4-year-old. Joy in these activities is their proper immediate effect. The joy you experience in them is self-standing. It does not depend on some further future condition coming true. The future cannot take this present joy hostage. Gifts require no gain to be good. And so this enjoyment depends on the ability and even the discipline to be fully attentive to the goodness that is on offer. And we can have both eyes so firmly fixed on future days and things that we don't have, that we miss God's gift in the present. And so Bobby Jameson writes, present yourself fully to what the present presents you, and you will receive its full helping of enjoyment. Well, let me ask you this morning, are you presenting yourself fully to moments that God has given you to enjoy? Because one of the other themes in Ecclesiastes is about time and how time passes. And one of the things about time is you can't slow it down and you can't get it back. And so you don't want to wish away the time or the season, because there's a time and a season for everything under the sun. These are God-given gifts to enjoy. But how do we guard against the idea that the teacher is just saying, enjoy your life more? Because that's not really the sum total of the teacher's message. What he's pointing us to is more nuanced than that. Because, on the one hand, if you can't see that life is good and every good gift comes from God, then you'll be cynical about this life and you'll fail to enjoy it. And you'll keep on missing those moments to receive. And he doesn't want you to do that. There's nothing better for you to do than to enjoy and receive God's gift. But if, on the other hand, you see all the gifts of this life as so good that you make them ultimate, you'll eventually find yourself empty and lost. And everything will never be enough. And the march of time and the march toward death will make a mockery of what you lived for. And so you must receive the gifts of God and enjoy them, but you must respect the limits of a gift, not make them ultimate things. Because to treat them as ultimate things turns them into smoke. But to receive them as the gift of God frees you to enjoy them as they are given and not be ruined by them. And so the teacher says that wisdom is to accept Hevel, to accept that you're not in control of this life, but to present yourself fully to enjoy the good gifts that God has given. Well, this is also true, but it's still not quite the whole truth. For that, there are these few brief moments that the teacher takes us up to the top floor to see that ultimately life is about God. On levels 1 and 2, the view is only of everything that is under the sun. But on the top floor, the teacher asks you to consider him who is above it, that you might fear God and live your life before him. To fear God is to recognize the infinite difference between you and him. His power, your weakness. He's in control and you're not. His wisdom and our ignorance. You see, without the fear of God, we go on about dreams and wants and plans, and we end up giving ourselves to things that are Hevel. But the teacher says, be not rash with your mouth, nor let your heart be hasty to utter a word before God, for God is in heaven and you are on earth. Therefore, let your words be few. Truly wise living is to understand that God is God and you are not. And not everything happens the way that you think they should. And so our very lives are about God. Your life is answerable to God. And the one who fears God knows that nothing in this world is ever enough, that only God is. And so God's voice becomes louder than your inner voice, your inner guide. His influence becomes the determining and guiding factor of your life. Those who fear God, they don't want to do anything in their life to offend God. They don't want to ruin their intimacy with God. They want to live their life before him knowing that he sees all. And so they begin to live a truly wise and right life before God. After all that the teacher has observed, after all that he's tried and all that he has done and he has been through, what is left? It says at the very end of the book, the end of the matter. All has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. And so he doesn't say that you should spend your life buried in books trying to answer all the puzzles of human life. Don't exhaust yourself. You'll never get there. You'll never fully understand why things happen the way they do. But he says that the end of the matter is this: fear God. Do his will. What's the way of happiness, of wisdom, of meaning and purpose? It's the fear of the Lord. Who is the wise mother, the wise woman, the wise man, the wise child? It's the one who knows that ultimately your life is answerable to God and it guides the course of your life. You walk humbly before your God, whatever comes your way. And that's the message of Ecclesiastes to all. If you know that, then you know more than the person on earth with the highest IQ. You have more than the richest person on earth, because you know that life under the sun can never satisfy on its own. It is hevel. It's utterly hevel. In Ecclesiastes 8:13 through to 15, the teacher makes a significant statement as he looks at the way that people live their lives. He says, though a sinner does evil 100 times and prolongs his life, yet I know that it will be well with those who fear God, because they fear before him. But it will not be well with the wicked, neither will he prolong his days like a shadow, because he does not fear God. No future for those who do not fear God. But the hope of those who fear God is that he has promised to sweep away all that is hevel, all that is temporary and fleeting, to put right everything that is unjust, to put an end to all futility that entered the world because of our sin. The teacher looks at much of the world through Genesis 3, but he longs for Genesis 1. And he sees that God is a judge who is going to put all things right. And ultimately, what the teacher doesn't see in full is that God has loved the world so much that he's given his own son to enter into futility, to enter into this hevel, to die and take the judgment for every sin upon himself on the cross. And in his resurrection, Jesus began a new creation, a world where death and futility and hevel is not going to have the final word. And so the answer to the deep philosophical questions of Ecclesiastes is not some new kind of optimism for you to sort of adopt in your life, or just the advice to try and enjoy your life more. The answer for every heart is Jesus Christ. Everything in this world will never be enough, but Jesus is enough. Only him, only he is enough to satisfy your soul, both now and forever. You know, a few weeks ago, I was out the front of my house, and a woman in her 30s came down the street, walking down the middle of the road. She's probably in her 30s, and she was asking for directions. But I saw that she was barefoot, and she wasn't well clothed, and she was bleeding, and maybe affected in some way by some substances or something. And so I just stopped. Are you okay? And Michelle went and got some water for her, and she ended up sitting down on our front lawn, and she broke down in tears about all the troubles going on in her life. She didn't really even know where her kids were. She wept over the pain of losing her father, scarred by much abuse that she had been through. And she just kept repeating over and over again, why? I've just tried everything and nothing seems to work. And we spent some time listening with her, and then drove her to her house to make sure she was safe for the night, and we prayed with her. And my heart just broke for this woman. Every now and then since, I've just prayed for her. Just feel the anguish of a life in chaos without anyone to comfort her. She's like the person that you see in this book. Grief, futility, confusion, injustice, exhaustion, the cries of why. This is the emptiness and the futility that so many people experience in our world today in so many ways. And you know, the hope of the gospel for all people is that God has promised to bring a world that lasts in Jesus Christ. He is the hope of every heart. He's the Redeemer of all things. He puts our lives back together, and he's putting the whole creation back together. Maybe you're not in a situation as desperate as that woman, but life is frustrating and hard. Nothing seems to satisfy. Maybe you're in pain because you've been treated badly. Maybe you're struggling to enjoy God-given moments. Maybe you've been chasing the wind. The invitation this morning is to present yourself fully to Jesus, because only Jesus will ever be enough. That's the message of Ecclesiastes to mums this morning, going through all the things, carrying all the load that you are. And it's the message for everyone this morning. Only Jesus will ever be enough. Let's quiet our hearts before him. You are God in heaven, and we are here on earth. So we let our words be few. We worship and honor you, our God. We thank you for giving us your Son, Jesus, who is going to sweep away everything that doesn't last and bring us into your eternal kingdom. May we live each day presenting ourselves fully to the good gifts that you've given us to enjoy. And above all, may we fear you, be in awe of you, and be satisfied in you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Let's all stand together.
In heaven, so